Good day to you all. I'm Clarence.
And I'm Shan.
In today's video, with the help of our demonstrators, Julian and Mary,
Hi, I'm Julian.
Hello, I'm Mary.
We'll be dissecting and demonstrating the parts of a pig's heart.
before we begin, the demonstrators should disinfect the tray or container that they will be using. Here are the surgical instruments to be used for this activity. Proper protective equipment such as eyewear and gloves should be worn. For this dissection, the demonstrators will be using two cameras for two angles. Here is the first camera, and here is the second. We will now be examining the heart. The heart should be held with one hand, with the other serving as the pointing hand to show the location of each part of the heart. This is the pericardium, a thin, two-layered fluid-filled sac that acts as a covering for the outer surface of the heart. Below the pericardium, we can find the myocardium. This is mostly located in the ventricles, or the lower chambers of the heart. This is the tip of the heart, otherwise known as the apex. In placing the heart on the pan, the front or ventral side should be facing towards you. Now, we will be locating the chambers of the heart. This is the left atria. Second is the left ventricle. This is the right atria. And finally, this is the right ventricle. From the ventral side, we can also observe the blood vessels in the upper area of the heart. First is the coronary artery, which supplies oxygen and nutrients to the heart muscles. Next is the pulmonary artery, which can be found curving out of the right ventricle. This artery branches out and brings the oxygenated blood to the lungs for gas exchange. This is the aorta, a major vessel that can be found near the right atria, just behind the pulmonary arteries. These are the pulmonary veins. Through these vessels, oxygenated blood from the lungs is brought to the left atrium. And lastly is the inferior vena cava and the superior vena cava. As you can see, these vessels do not contain valves, which serves to control blood flow.
Now that we have properly observed the heart, we will now begin the dissection. Using the scissors, we will cut through the side of the pulmonary artery and down into the wall of the right ventricle. Remember that the cut should be deep enough to go through the wall of the heart chamber. It should be above and parallel to the groove of the coronary artery. Next, use your fingers to push open the heart at the cut and examine the internal structure. Moving on to the other parts of the heart, this is the right atrium. As we can see, the muscular wall of this receiving chamber is thinner. To follow is the inferior vena cava and the superior vena cava. As shown by our demonstrators, there is a lack of valves in both the superior and inferior vena cava. This is the tricuspid valve. This valve allows blood flow from the right atrium into the right ventricle. This happens during diastole, or the period where the heart is relaxed. Meanwhile, the valve closes when the ventricular pressure becomes greater than the pressure in the atrium. This happens during the systole phase, or when the heart begins to contract. Using your fingers, observe the thickness and smooth lining of the right ventricle. Take note that there is a network of irregular muscle cords on the inner wall of the right ventricle. On the right side of the right ventricle, we can locate the septum. This is a thick muscular wall that separates the right and left ventricles. This is the pulmonary artery, which can be found inside the right ventricle. The pulmonary valve is found at the entrance to the pulmonary artery. This is a one-way valve that controls blood flow away from the right ventricle. Using your scissors, we will now continue to cut the heart open. Start on the outside of the left atrium and cut downwards into the left ventricle. Make sure to cut towards the apex to the septum at the center groove. Then, push open the heart at this cut with your fingers. If there's any dried blood inside, rinse it out with water.
To show and point the pulmonary veins. This is the left atrium. This is where the pulmonary vein is. And here's the other one. The other pulmonary vein. This one.
These veins come from the lungs. At the entrance to these veins are one-way semilunar valves. Next is the bicuspid valve, otherwise known as the mitral valve. This can be found between the upper left atrium and the lower left ventricle. This valve is made up of two leaflets. During diastole, blood flows from the left atrium into the left ventricle. This is the left ventricle. Notice the thickness of the ventricular wall, which is due to its role in pumping blood throughout the body. Using your scissors, cut across the left ventricle towards the aorta to expose the valve. Then, we will locate the aortic valve, which has a half-moon shape and 3 flaps or leaflets. This valve leads from the left ventricle into the aorta. Lastly, locate the coronary sinus, or the hole in the wall of this major artery. This hole leads into the coronary artery, a vessel that carries oxygenated blood to the heart muscle.
This ends our demonstration. Make sure to properly dispose any waste and disinfect your instruments and work area.
See you in the next video!
Bye!